How do I manage an embarrassing confession I made at a work event to a colleague? Welcome to Perfection's Antidote. I'm Belinda Brummer.
And I'm Tracy Kites.
We're on a mission to help you navigate the situations you might find yourself in at work. In each episode, we'll bring you
one question,
2 perspectives,
3 takeaways. Our aim here is to keep it real, simple, filter-free.
If you enjoy learning tools that help you lead and work better, subscribe to this podcast and please do leave a review. If you have any questions for the show, please send them to us. You'll find a link about how to do this in the show notes. Tracy, we have a question from Craig from Cornwall today. He's a marketing executive and he's given us a little bit of context about himself here. He says, I am an experienced leader who has worked in this company for several years. And his question feels like it comes from a very emotional place. He says, I'm so embarrassed. I got drunk at the company holiday party and told my crush in accounting how I felt. Now things are super awkward. How do I face them on Monday without dying of shame? Oh, Tracy, how does Craig manage this embarrassing confession?
Oh, Craig, I feel for you. Honestly, that's full of feeling, that question. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because inevitably we build relationships at work. I met my own husband at work. And that's inevitably because we work long hours. We work alongside people for a lot of the time. So inevitably we build relationships with people.
Yeah. And I should say, Tracy, there are different kinds of relationships. So there are those kind of relationships that are intimate relationships, but there are friends and there are peers that stay in our network for years and years, and you have a professional relationship with them. So this could equally apply to any kind of relationship. In this instance, though, poor Craig has a crush on somebody. So we're talking about that intimate type of relationship.
Yes, and I imagine that at celebrations and parties, we often have a drink, an alcoholic drink, which makes us less inhibited than we might be usually at work and say things that we might regret later. However, it's out there, it's been said, and it is what it is, I think. So, my first thought about it is just be human. We're all humans. And sometimes humans have messy emotions attached, and sometimes we do things that we may not choose to do again or wish we hadn't done in the first place. So just be human. Appreciate your humanity. It happens. I think this is not a situation where you need to beat yourself up about it.
No, absolutely not. I've seen and heard about a lot of quite extreme things that happen at company parties when alcohol is involved. And you know what? People and work relationships survive. It feels a little bit awkward. It feels like it shouldn't have happened sometimes, but they do survive. And I'm not even sure that I would have the conversation unless I really feel like I need to clear the air, or I want to clear the air, or I want to check with the person that they are okay about what's happened, or if there's anything else from the event that, either that particular moment or the party that you actually want to talk about. If not, which is not necessarily saying it's the right thing to do, but my instinct would be just to move on. Yes, have the conversation if you need to, or if you want to, but generally move on. I think you might differ on this one, Tracy.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, and I hadn't thought about that because my gut reaction would be have the conversation. Craig doesn't say whether, that conversation was reciprocated. He doesn't say whether his crush came back and said anything in return. He does say that it's a bit awkward, but I'm not sure whether it's awkward because he feels awkward or whether it's awkward because it's awkward between the two of them. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I've always worked on the assumption that if something feels a bit awkward, just deal with it so that you can move on. And having a difficult conversation is difficult by nature, but it's more difficult sometimes to not have it because that sense, that feeling, that difficulty remains if you don't deal with it. And I'm not suggesting it needs to be a heavy conversation. I genuinely don't think it needs to be a heavy conversation. But if there's a sense of awkwardness that's coming from the person that he spoke to, if it's their awkwardness, my gut would say tackle it.
Yeah.
But keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there is awkwardness, now he's talking about Monday morning, he doesn't know how he's going to face Monday morning. So I suspect that it's his awkwardness that he's feeling, and he might be feeling a little bit embarrassed. He hasn't tested the waters yet on that awkwardness. But if it is awkward, I agree with you completely. You need to iron that out. You need to have a very simple, uncomplicated conversation. But if you do choose to have that conversation, you need to know what you want. This is obviously somebody who you have, or Craig has a crush on. And so he needs to know what he wants to do next. But equally, he needs to know and understand and respect what the other person might want. To your point, we don't know how the crush who was confessed to actually responded in that moment. But in the absence of understanding that, hopefully Craig has a sense of how that confession landed and went down, and he needs to respect that. He also needs to respect the fact that that person may not want to have the conversation, or actually might be really into the idea of taking this somewhere else. And that's the thing, we don't know, and maybe Craig doesn't know because maybe alcohol is blurring the whole thing and he really can't remember. However, this for me very closely, it's not necessarily a conversation about consent, but it is one about respect, and respect how that person might feel. And so, I'm not sure I would go there, but if he felt it was necessary to go there, or the occasion actually called for him to go there, be clear, have the difficult conversation, and respect how the other person is showing up in that conversation.
Yes, for sure. And it is about where the awkwardness is coming from, as we said before. So if he is going to tackle it, I would suggest do it soon. Don't leave it to fester. Timely is always a key factor, I think, in having conversations, especially difficult conversations. So do it soon. And it may be as simple as, I'm really sorry I landed that on you at the party. We'd had a few drinks. Is this something we need to talk about? Or are you okay to leave it there? Or do you want to leave it there? And we'll just carry on. I think it's just testing the water, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved how you worded that. The only thing that I would say is maybe not put it down to alcohol, because that can really cheapen the message a little bit, and it can almost feel a little bit like an excuse, but just maybe a nod to the occasion that was in it in the delivery of that message would be the only thing.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And of course, because if you have feelings for somebody, whether those are romantic feelings or a strong bond friendship, you're right. You don't want to cheapen that. We don't know Craig's circumstances or the circumstances of his crush, or whether either of them are wishing that it would move forward.
Yeah. And my last thought on it is, when I think about Craig in that moment and confessing to his crush how he's feeling, a little part of me is applauding him, because, it's so difficult to say to people how we feel, to tell people how we really feel. And so while it may be awkward and embarrassing and maybe he didn't plan it, a little part of me is congratulating him on actually saying how he felt.
For sure. We're humans, we're not robots. And I think this is just an opportunity to be human.
The question we've pondered here was, how do I manage an embarrassing confession I made at a work event to a colleague? Now, your power of 3. Allow yourself to be human and don't beat yourself up. Recognize that all humans have messy emotions and do out of the ordinary things sometimes, especially in social situations involving alcohol. Assess how awkward things are and whether it's yours or mutual awkwardness. This will help you decide whether to have a conversation or not. If you do decide to go ahead, keep it simple and respectful. Address it soon. Don't let it fester. You could say something like, I'm sorry I landed that on you at the party. Is this something we need to talk about, or are you okay to leave it there? Respect the other person's feelings and wishes in how to proceed. Workplace relationships are common, and many survive awkward moments. Focus on moving forward professionally, regardless of the outcome. And while it may feel embarrassing now, there's also something admirable about expressing your feelings honestly. Did something we talk about spark something in you? An idea or a memory? Please share it with us in the comments below. Follow us. We're real and unfiltered. This show is brought to you by, well, us. Tracy Kite is a leadership and management development specialist, executive coach, and author of Lead Like You Give an F. And I'm the founder of Boost Learning, a boutique ecosystem that nurtures better managers and leaders. I also help organizations amplify their culture, train their people, and build better community connections through podcasting.